5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. I want to mention again that we'll be up in Minneapolis on the 7th of November. It's a Thursday night. We're going to have, or in the afternoon, we're going to have a presentation. Yet to be determined location. If you know of one, let me know. I expect to be in Boston in about 3 weeks, and we'll have a meetup there in one of the great pubs around town. So, off we go. I wanted to start with this one because I've been putting it off, but Mark Ritson explains that in England, it seems, there's going to be a great streaming battle, but that's not why I like the article. He said, growing up in the 70s, and I grew up in the 60s, there were only 3 channels back then, and there was literally no content. And what we mean by literally no content, not something we don't feel like watching, but mostly, I don't want to say mostly, but at a certain point in the day, I don't remember the time when I was a little kid, but I remember that the Star Spangled Banner would play, and then you'd get a tuning picture of just a static thing, and then finally somebody put some music on it, but basically it sat there all night. And so from about midnight on, I remember at one point in my life I was allowed to stay up until the TV turned off. It used to turn itself off. You could keep the TV on, but it wouldn't show you anything because there was nothing on, and all the TV stations went off at the same time. Amazing, right? And I remember in college that we'd stay up and watch The Rifleman after we were done studying, which went on at about 12:30, and then it would go off. And that's how I learned about Sam Peckinpah. But anyway, let's go on. And so there's going to be a lot of disruption because, frankly, we watch Amazon and Netflix more than we watch network TV by quite a bit. And it's an already crowded market of all kinds of streaming sources. And so there's going to be too many channels spending too much money, offering too much content while charging too little to make anything other than a gigantic loss. So you're only going to have the mega players making it through. And he reminds us that even Netflix had to issue $15 billion in junk bonds to stay afloat, and now they're starting to pay $1 billion for stuff like old Seinfeld shows, which I like, but only because they were on late night TV, and or you could watch a whole bunch of them. So what's going to happen, and this is really interesting, is that there's a rule of 3, he calls it. This is from Boston Consulting Group. Rule of 3 applies to almost all mature categories. And if you're against income inequality, if you think you can stop income inequality, this goes along with Price's law, which governs the height of trees, the size of galaxies, and the hierarchies in the lobster world. I learned that from Jordan Peterson. And that is that there are hierarchies everywhere because it is more efficient in managing resources. So the bigger galaxies have higher gravity, attract more mass. They get bigger and bigger, while the medium size don't stay on. I learned when I was in junior high playing basketball, high school basketball, that the guys who got the playing time got better. And so even though I was very similar in talent, I thought, to the starters, but as the season went on, that differential grew, no matter how hard I worked, because I didn't get on the court with the good players. I had to play with the guys who I thought were grossly inferior to me. So I took up skiing and did well in that. Okay, so the biggest player, the ones that ends up with the 40% share, will be the least innovative, have the largest R&D budget, which it will use to match and improve on the advances of its 2 major competitors. You can observe this rule in operation across everything from pizzas, Domino's, Pizza Hut, and Pizza Express to online stores, Dropbox, Google Drive, and OneDrive, and terrestrial TV, BBC, whatever. We don't know what those are because we're in the U.S. Anyway, so what will happen is these 3 will eat the lunch of everyone else, and no surprise, and they might be able to make money at doing it. as they eliminate the market for cheap, bad old TV. When is the Beverly Hillbillies coming back? I did see Petticoat Junction on a couple months ago somewhere. Anyway, hey Jerry in Portland. So that's what's going to happen. And if you don't like it, it's going to be a bloodbath because nobody can afford it. And that's the way it is. I was going to say that's the way capitalism is, but that's not it. That's the way the world is. Okay? And if you think you can fight income equality by making everyone's income equal, it doesn't work. Socialist countries often have the greatest income inequality where the leaders live like kings and everyone else starves. Look at North Korea. It's a great example. Venezuela. Lots of great examples all through history. This one's a scary one. The AMA finds consumers have peaked on key digital media, but marketers keep spending more on it. Okay, and I apologize for the small type on this one, but AMA, and there'll be more coming out. This was just in the last 2 hours that this came out. There's a disconnect between consumers and marketers. U.S. consumers have already peaked in their use of dominant digital media formats, but U.S. marketers are continuing to increase their investments in both. 68% in social and 25% in online gaming. What do I keep telling you? It's hype. It's buzzwords. If you want to make your marketing work, use mail. It's crazy, but no one's going there. Be contrarian. Test it. I can tell you how. Anyway, American consumers are less than keen on the benefits of 9 key ad tech innovations, things like personalized ads, micro-influencers, employee influencers, augmented reality, and Internet of Things connected to home devices. Then the U.S. marketing would justify. None, this is it, none of these emerging marketing technologies are favored by a majority of Americans. And what's really interesting to me is how my kids interact with this stuff. I mean, they were, my son, I said he had to read his mail. He said, "You're in the Stone Age, Dad." This was a few months ago. Now he reads his mail. Because there's important stuff in it, like past due notices, not for him in particular, mostly these days. But those kind of things come in the mail. Then they start calling. And so you got to read your mail, and those kids are getting deaf to the thunder of digital marketing. And you know what? There's an on-off button, and you can turn them off. And that's the great thing about digital that you can't with mail. So think about that. Okay, retail apocalypse coming. Oh, before we do that, let's bounce over here to, this was a scary one, Adland, which has been I just found it, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, what a great deal. It's got a repository of all the award-winning commercials, and it's been going for like 20 years on the internet. And so it's the go-to place. It's great. And somebody wrote them and said, your ad, A Dog's Life for Bridgestone Tires, is a copyright violation, and they notified Volter and said, you need to remove this website. And the worst part is that they did it. The host removed the website. Now, I have had a few rare complaints, partly because my sites are attacked, and then somebody posts some stuff, and I don't even know about it, and then somebody complains. But my host, pair.com, Pair.com, my host will notify me and say, hey, what's up with this? Is this, are you having a problem with this? And they will ask me, and well, I've been with them for 20 years, but they actually have customer service, and they will tell me if they think something's up, and we'll work it out because they know I'm a good guy. Okay? You need to check. If you have a website, you need to check whether your host will pull the plug on you in 24 hours if there's one complaint about one commercial that's from 2003 that you have archived for the world. And it's just, in my opinion, it's criminal. And what's the damages? What's the damages that Bridgestone, the word Bridgestone is used to describe the ad? There's no trademarks even in the creative. Bridgestone, it's like it's all owned, it's all, you're promoting the tire company. Yeah, the internet. There's some really scary copyright decisions. And one of the things you need to do is you need to check with your IP and say, hey, if a complaint is filed, even if it's a legal complaint, do I have a right to due process? Do I get to go to court before you pull the plug on my site? Because if you pull the plug on my site, effectively, there is no due process. Something to think about. That's enough for today. We've got some more on tap for tomorrow. Have a great day. Like and share. Share shows you care, and your friends will think you're smart.